3/4 of all adults worry about money. And about half of those people say that it affects their mental health. So in this video, you are going to find out the 6-step process how to go from worrying about money all the time to not worrying about money anymore. So let us start with step number 1. Step number 1 is why do I worry? As established, the majority of people worry, but they also tend to push the worry to the back of their mind to live better on a day-to-day basis and not face their worries and fears so much. But I would like you to acknowledge that you worry, and not only acknowledge that you worry, but also find out why you worry. Because only by knowing why you worry can you face the things that worry you. Now, the first thing that will be tremendously helpful in that is knowing your own financial personality type. And to help you with that, I've previously created a video called the 10 financial personality types. And with that video, you can find out what your financial personality type is. Now, make sure to know what your financial personality type is, because it heavily impacts why you worry and what you worry about. An investor will worry about different things than a saver or a debtor. This really depends on what your financial personality type is. Now, it is important that you not only assess your own financial personality type, but that of anyone that is involved in your finances. I'm here not talking about your financial advisor, if you have one, but rather your spouse, your children, your parents that you might be taking care of. Whoever is a stakeholder in your financial reality, you should assess for their financial personality, because it will explain to you why that person worries so much or so little. Oftentimes, the differences in how much or how little someone worries can create friction in a family or a friendship. Now, once you have established the financial personality type of yourself and the people that are involved in your finances, the next thing is to take everything that you always keep at the back of your mind, bring it to the front, and then overcome that burden of stress and put it on paper. Because things worry us the most when we cannot perform a brain dump. A brain dump here is usually going to help you. Everything that's in your brain that worries you, you will put on paper. In the illustration that I chose for why do I worry, you can see some of the elements that tend to worry people. It could be retirement, it could be medical bills, it could be groceries, it could be mortgage payments, it could be their car, it could be a vacation, it could be so many things. Because the reality is that for almost everything in our life, we need to spend money. And so the pool of potential sources of worry is near indefinite. So you need to make your own personal, honest assessment of the things that worry you. And if you are in a relationship, make sure your partner does the same thing, independently of you. At this stage, I would like you to make yours and your partner to make their own financial worry map. Now, once you have made this map, you will find the things that worry you. Now, you don't have to be very specific here. You can just draw a house or just write mortgage or whatever it is that you worry about. Just make it quick and dirty, but honest and thorough as you can. All right? Now, the next thing you are now going to do is you are going to look at these things and you are going to list them by what worries you most. Now, you're going to rank them. Does the mortgage worry me more than the car payment? Or does retirement worry me more than student loan debt? You need to balance these out to know what your focus is, because in reality, the things that worry you most drain your energy the most. They consume most of your times and thoughts. And so these things need to be your priority, the things that worry you most. Now, once you have created your hierarchical worry list, you are now going to assess how realistic it is that these things happen. Now, how do you assess if a worry is realistic to happen? Well, look at the data. Now, I know worry is a personal and emotional subject, but try to rationalize it as much as possible. For example, if you are worried about, well, if I lose my job, I don't have an income, and if I don't have an income, I can't pay all these bills, and I'm going to be in a horrible situation, then it is important to assess how likely is it that you're going to lose your job. If you do lose your job, how quickly could you find a new job that would pay you a similar salary? And if you cannot find a new job quickly that pays you a similar salary, do you have emergency funds, and how long would they last you realistically? All right, now you will do this with all the items that worry you. Start with the ones that worry you the most and work your way down to the ones that worry you least. By doing this, you're going to have a more realistic understanding of what is actually threatening you financially. It might be that the thing that worries you the most is on a risk scale pretty low, but it might be that something that worries you very little is very likely to happen. Now, this will give you more reassurance as to what might or might not happen in your life, which again will provide you with safety and having less worry. Now, we are going to transition into the second step. What is the second step? The second step is talk to someone. Now, this is hugely important. Not just anyone. Talk to someone you trust, who can be your support system. It needs to be a person that can be there for you, not just for one conversation, but repeatedly. Because oftentimes an emotional subject, such as financial worry, is hard for us to talk about in just one sitting. By talking with the person more often, it will make it easier for you to talk about everything that you worry about. Now, the other thing is, it is important that you choose the moment of talking right. Now, what do I mean by that? You can search for the right moment to talk about a subject, or, which I would suggest, you can create the right moment to talk about a subject. Prepare the person for what you will be talking about. Say that this is an emotional subject. Say that this is very near and dear to your heart. Communicate that this might need a little bit longer to talk about, and ask them if they themselves are in an emotional state where they feel prepared to talk about these things. This is essential to create a productive and satisfying conversation, because if you just broach the subject by surprise on them, then this makes it much harder for them to give you the support that you crave so much. Now, what is the other reason for why talking is so essential? Beyond that person being your support structure, talking also provides us with the information of where we might have knowledge gaps. If you wish to teach, you first need to understand. This also holds true for when you explain your feelings, your worries. You first need to know what you worry about. Doing this step will oftentimes show you where you might have not been honest enough with yourself in step one, or where you might have forgotten about things from step one. So this is going to hugely help you to assess, wait a moment, did I put everything on my worry map? That should have been on my worry map. That is at the back of my mind. If you start talking about things that are not on your worry map, or you start thinking about things that are not on your worry map, get out your worry map, put it on that worry map. Make sure it is included now. So oftentimes, while you're at step 2, you're going to quickly go back to step 1 to make additions to your initial step 1 work. Now, the other thing, this is the third function of talking to a person, is that by talking to someone else, you will get an outside perspective on your situation. That person can reflect on your situation. They can tell you if what you have said is realistic, unrealistic. And keep in mind, you're talking to someone you trust. someone you can rely on, who is a support person to you. So that person already knows you very well, most likely, which means that person already knows what kind of financial personality you are. Or at least they might have a rough idea. They might already have a rough idea of what things worry you. And therefore, this is also a great tool to again check that you included everything from step one, that you made sure you didn't miss out on anything that worries you. So this is the third function of talking to someone. They'll provide you with an outside perspective. Now, when we transition into step 3, we want to make sure that we have the following things ready. We have assessed what is our financial personality type. We have assessed what is the financial personality type of the people around us. We have created a worry map to which we have returned a few times to include things that we initially forgot. We have made a hierarchical ranking of what things worry us the most to what things worry us the least. And we have made a list of how likely is it that these things that worry us are going to happen. We have established a support system. We have communicated to our support system that they will be a support system. Don't treat someone as your support system without telling them that they will be your support system. Not just once, but for an extended period of time. Months, years potentially. Now, the next thing that we want to make sure that was completed was that that person gave us feedback on what we said, that it's not just a one-sided conversation where we share everything that we worry about, but that person has no opportunity to tell us their opinion on the subject. Now, once you have completed all these things, then you can proceed to step number 3. Step number 3 is get organized. Now, at this point, you might already feel very organized. After all, you have all the things that worry you on paper and have already made a risk assessment on that. That is not enough, because so far we've only looked at one side of the coin. We've only looked at the things that worry you, not the things that don't worry you. A large part of being less worried is to not just look at the things that worry us, but also the things that provide us with reassurance and safety. Now, in this step, you are going to get your finances and your life organized. It is important that you make a full balance sheet of this is my earnings, your source of income. This is from my job. This is from a side hustle. This is from investments. Everything that you make needs to be included on this. The same way, everything you spend needs to be included on this. So whether it is your mortgage or it is just a grocery bill, everything you spend needs to be included on this. One thing that is very important is to not neglect annual bills. So if you're only paying your car insurance once a year, make sure to include that in your monthly balance and just simply divide your car insurance bill by 12, making sure that you don't neglect sudden expenses that you don't always have. Otherwise, you might accidentally make a balance sheet of a month that didn't cost you very much, or a month that cost you much more than other months. And one could provide you too much reassurance and safety. The other one might provide you with an unrealistic expectation of why you should worry and how much you could worry. So make sure to even out annual bills to a monthly basis. This way you have a more realistic balance sheet. Now, in addition to creating an income and spending balance sheet, I want you to create a balance sheet of your time, because oftentimes we find that we perceive ourselves limited in our income capability by time constraints. Well, I'm busy, I don't have time, so if things got hard, I couldn't pay the bill because I don't have the time to work extra. My job doesn't have the opportunity of doing overtime. Make an honest assessment of your time. Where can you gain time? I'm not telling you that you have to actually use that time, go out, work more hours, make more money, but what I would like is that you mentally know you have a safety cushion, not just of money, but of time, which you could then turn into money if necessary. Now, this is a step that many people don't do when they do a balance sheet. Make sure you do that step. Yes, it is an extra step. Yes, it is extra work. But by doing this, you will have more reassurance. You will have a more realistic understanding of your situation, and it will better help you to not worry so much anymore, because you suddenly have found safety where you never suspected to find safety: in your time. Now, the other thing that I would like you to look at in this step is every other form of safety fallbacks you have. So in step number 1, I gave as an example someone that loses their job, can't pay their bills, so now they lose everything. Is this likely in your case? Now, you made a risk assessment in step number 1 based on how likely it is that you lose your job. Assuming worst comes to worst, what is going to happen? Are you going to end up on the street? Or do you have a friend that could help you, where you could sleep on someone's sofa for a while? Do you have parents that could take you in for a while? Or do you maybe have children that could take you in for a while? All these things, as uncomfortable as they might be as subjects, are important for you to know with certainty or near certainty, to provide you with reassurance and comfort that you know, okay, even if I lost my job, there is a plan, not B, but C. I don't want to go with plan C, but at least I'm not ending up on the street. Now, make sure to make this part of step 3, getting organized. Build redundancies, build plan Cs. What do they look like? What do they constitute? Now, the other thing that you are now going to do as part of step 3, getting organized, is you are going to look at all of your income, and you are going to look at the reliability of your income. Oftentimes, people under or overestimate the reliability of income. People that have short-term rental apartments they rent out oftentimes overestimate the reliability of income, and had a pretty rude awakening in 2020 with the times of Corona. Now, oftentimes people that have held their job for the last 5, 10, 15 years with their employer tend to underestimate the reliability of the position. And so it is important that you get a more realistic expectation of how reliable is that form of income. Something that is going to provide you with certainty, and therefore again with a sense of safety. Or if you find that the answer you get is negative, it is something you can now focus on to work on. How can you make this source of income more reliable and more secure? How can you change your rental structure to your tenants? How can you change your work contract with your employer? Could you maybe ask for a different time of notice of when you're being laid off? What could you work out? This needs to be personal. I can make a million suggestions, but again, this needs to be based on your life. So make sure to assess the reliability of your income and increase the reliability of your income. Now, the next step is to assess your expenses. Now, here you cannot assess the reliability of your expenses the way you did with your income. But what you can do is you can categorize them based on need. Which expenses do you need and which ones do you not need? And before you get started saying, oh, okay, this I need, this I don't need, this I need, one thing that is important is I am not talking about, oh, right now you're spending this much on your mortgage and this much on your car payment. If you're spending $500 a month on your car payment, do you need not to pay the car payment every month because contractually you need to? But do you need that car? This is what you have to ask yourself, right? So people oftentimes will say, oh, all these expenses I can't get rid of. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can change what you spend the money on. Oftentimes the things that we're locked into long term, we perceive as inescapable, such as mortgage payments or car payments. Now, it is important that you look at, do you need that house? Do you need that car? And if the answer is no, actually a smaller car or cheaper car would do the trick too, then your car payment does not fall in the category of needed expenses. Now, what you are going to do instead is you're going to research how much would it cost me to buy the car that I actually need. What would be my monthly payment on that? Now, this number that you can put in the needed expenses, that is how much you really need to spend on a car. What you are spending is most likely, statistically speaking, above what you need to spend. And based off of that, you're going to create your list. You already have your list of how much you're actually spending, how much you're actually making. Now I want you to also have the list of how much you need to spend. And then additionally, all the spending that is not necessary, I would like you to assign pleasure to. Which of the things that are not necessary and therefore you don't have to spend money on make you the most happy, bring you the most value in your life, which have the greatest utility. Now, if something is very cheap but brings you a great amount of utility, then keep going with it. If something is very expensive and provides you with little utility, cut it loose. I know this is hard, and you're not alone in this. We as humans value the things we have more than the things we could have. This is true for all humans. And so keep in mind, you most likely overestimate the value of things because you have them. If you didn't have them and would be presented with the choice to spend that money on it, you wouldn't do it. So, again, I'm not telling you to only spend money on things that are necessary. That is not what this step is about. This step is about helping you understand how much money you really need, how much money you really make. This is crucial. Now, at the end of this step, you should have a clear understanding of your sources of income as well as their reliability. You should have an understanding of your spending, not just this month or that month, but your monthly average spending. And you should have an understanding of how much you need to spend, not how much you do spend or how much you want to spend, but how much you need to spend to maintain a lifestyle that makes you similarly happy and fulfilled to what you currently are experiencing and living. Now, once you have done all of that, we are going to move on to step number 4. What is step number 4? Step number 4 is the action plan. Now, the action plan is going to be your plan to get you out of a position of worry. Based on all the assessments that we did in step 1, 2, and 3, you will have identified the things that worry you the most, the things that bring you the most joy, the least joy, that cost you the most, cost you the least, and also cost you the most time, not just money. All these things we have identified. Now we need to work on an action plan based off of that to get out of a position of worrying. Now, how are we going to do that? If you have identified this is a topic of worry, let's take your mortgage for example, then you now have to look at what steps can you take to bring that item of worry into a category on your worry map where you no longer worry about it as much. This is what we will do in this step. What can I do to move a high worry item into a low or no worry category? This is all you do. You make plans to move these items from category to category so that they no longer worry you. The focus has to be on the things that worry you the most are rational worries, not irrational worries, and ideally cost you the most amount of money or lose you the most amount of earnings. So this is what we will focus on in this step. One thing that is important to understand is this is not your step to wealth building. This is your step to get out of a position of worrying. To do this, you are going to create SMART goals. SMART being an acronym standing for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. These are the 5 categories that your goals need to fulfill. You need to make sure your goal is very specific. You know what your goal is. To move my mortgage worry from a high worry category to a no worry category, I need to take this, that, and that step. It needs to be specific. It also needs to be measurable. For example, right now I am contributing X amount of dollars every month towards my mortgage, and I am paying X amount of interest on my mortgage. Now, you renegotiate your mortgage with another bank, now you might pay a lower interest rate. This is measurable. You need to create measurable goals. Now, the next thing is your goal needs to be attainable. On the subject of mortgage interest rates, if you say, well, my goal is that my new mortgage interest rate is 0.02%, then this is not attainable. But if your current rate is 3% and the market makes it possible, then maybe you could get 2.8%. Maybe not, but it needs to be attainable. So make sure that whatever you set your sights on as a goal, that you can actually make it. The next thing is that you need to choose something that is relevant, that is impactful. Because if it's not impactful, even if you achieve the goal, it is not going to help you to move an item from a high worry category to a low worry category. So make sure you spend your efforts on something that is impactful, that is relevant. For example, changing your payment structure on your mortgage could be, depending on how you do it, hugely impactful. But you need to assess that. If you focus on something that looks nice on paper but doesn't make much of a difference in the real life, then that is not good. Focus on things that make a difference. Now, the next thing is your goal has to be timely. You need to have a time plan. You need to say, by then I will have achieved that goal. So, for example, if you say, well, my car payments bother me and I have a hard time with those, if you can say, by the end of this year, I will have saved up an extra X amount of dollar to put towards my principal, if possible, of the car, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Then this is a specific goal. By December 31st, I have saved up X amount of dollar that will go towards the car. Now, here you can see there's a time limit on it. Time creates urgency, urgency creates action. So, this is important as you set your action plan, creating SMART goals. Now, the other thing that is important as you create your action plan is to make an action plan that is actionable for you, that is realizable, that you can live up to. If you make a wild action plan that has all these amazing ideas, but it completely overwhelms you, then this action plan is useless. You need to make an action plan that progresses over time. If you give a person a new routine that has too many items, involves too many things, they tend to fail that routine. That is oftentimes a large difficulty with diets. You don't gently ease the person and the mind into new habits and new behaviors. So saying, oh, I will never spend any more money on dining out is much harder than saying, maybe while I'm dining out, I will no longer order drinks while dining out. Or maybe I don't order a starter. These are things that are much easier to do, and once you've grown comfortable with them, the next step might be easier. So this is what is important. Now, in this step, it is also crucial that you again have your support system from step number 2, the person you can talk to, because they again know you well. They will say, hey, I don't think that you're going to be able to make what you set your sights on. Or they can tell you, hey, actually, I think you could make more than you set your sights on. It is important that they can give you feedback on this. You are not going to like everything in your action plan, because some of the things that you will do to be less worried will initially make you have less joy, but bring you the joy in the long term. So having someone that can remind you of that going through that hard time at first is worth it at the end, is hugely important. So remember to have your support system while making and enacting your action plan. Now, let us transition right into step number 5. Step number 5 is stick to it. Now, this might sound easy, but it's probably the hardest step of them all. Now, why is this such a hard step? Because it is repetitive. This is the reason why I just said that when you create your action plan, you create an action plan that you can consistently realize. Not just one day, 1 week, 1 month, but as long as it takes you to get out of a position of worrying. This might be months, it might be years, depending on your financial situation and your financial personality type. So, this is the hardest step. This is the step where you will need the most support from the person that is your support system. That person will oftentimes hear from you saying, I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. This is really difficult. All valid complaints, but they can then remind you of why you're doing it. And as you continue doing it, you will over time find that you start to be less worried, because the process of not worrying does not come sudden, it comes gradual, it comes over time. And so with that, there won't be that one day where you say, yesterday I worried, today I don't worry anymore. No, every day, every week, every month, you will worry a little bit less. And that is the stick to it part of this 6-step program. Now, doing this step is hard, undoubtedly, but tremendously rewarding, because once you are done with this step, you will have moved the items which previously were in high worry categories to low or no worry categories. You will also have found new peace with your financial situation. You will be more comfortable to look at your income, your expenses, which all is hugely important for step number 6. Now, at the end of step number 5, you should be in a position where you don't worry too much anymore. A little bit of worrying is okay, but not major worrying. Now, why is that important? You'll find that out in step number 6. What is step number 6? Step number 6 is the long run. Now, this step is very important, but also very different from the previous steps, because now you are working from a position of no or low worry. Why is this important? In step number 4, we created an action plan, which sounds similar to the long-term plan, but it is very different. What is different? The position out of which you're creating the plan. For step number 4, we created a plan not to build long-term wealth, but we created a plan to get you to stop worrying. It's a very different objective. Building wealth is just one of the steps involved in not worrying about money anymore. But there's many more steps involved. And so it is important that you don't make long-term financial decisions when you worry, because you will not make the most wise choice possible. See, in case you've ever gone grocery shopping while you're hungry, then you will have certainly made the experience that you bought much more than you wanted to because you were hungry, because you were driven by your emotions. Now, worry being a tremendously strong emotion, it can heavily cloud your financial judgment. It can cloud your long-term planning. And so you might create a plan that is not actually good for you. So it's much better to now create your long-term financial plan out of this position. During step 6, you are going to sit down and you're going to assess what do you want out of your future? What do you want for the long term? And how can you get there? Again, make smart goals. Have a clear plan of how you're going to get there. But now it is important that you don't increase your lifestyle expenses because you no longer worry about money, but rather that you use that extra capital towards your future. So you never get back in a situation of worrying. Many people will have made step 5, stick to it successfully, have put in all that hard work, and then they reward themselves with something they can't afford, and they get back in a position of worrying, having to go through all these steps again, and then they repeat the same thing again. Don't do this. It is important that you maintain the lifestyle that you've grown accustomed to. And if you do want to have some luxuries in addition, they need to be small, they need to be inexpensive, and simultaneously provide you with a lot of pleasure. So, again, in the long run, you are going to create your long-term financial plan, and then you will have to follow it through. The difference is that this is a long-term financial plan which is more soft. In the action plan, we created very hard structures that you need to follow to, in a fairly short amount of time, achieve your goal to not worry anymore. In the long run, we're talking about a time span of 10, 20, 50 years that you're planning for. So of course, you are allowed more leeway. You can have more changes of mind over time. This is more about having a general idea where you want to go and helping yourself getting there. Now, these were the 6 steps that you can take to stop worrying about money. Now, you will have stopped worrying about money after step 5, but as I said, it's important to then not do things that bring you back in a position of worrying, which is why step 6 exists. It prevents the hamster wheel where you get back to a state of worrying after not worrying, and then you get back to worrying. So step 6 is quintessential to follow through so that you can get far away from worrying about money. I am certain that these 6 steps will help you to worry less or worry not at all about money and take better control of your financial future. Now, I wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are. Take care. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you want to keep on learning, click on one of these videos.